Hello and welcome to another episode of My Property World. I'm Will Mallard and I'm delighted to be joined by Terry Blackburn. Terry, great to have you on.
Thank you for having us, Will. Nice to be chatting with you.
So where in the world are you?
At the moment, I'm from the northeast, but I don't live in the northeast anymore. So I live not far from Chester, about 45 minutes from Liverpool, is where I live.
Fantastic. And what are you up to at the moment before we start going back into your backstory?
What am I up to at the moment in terms of businesses and property? Where do I start? Lots. So I mean, I've got 11 companies, got about 40 properties, multiple different businesses from construction, letting agency, hotels. I've got a couple of businesses that I've sold. So I've been involved in financial services for many years, pretty much since I was 19. I'm 34 now. So I've sold out of a couple of those businesses in the past couple of years. And the rest of the businesses are property businesses where I hold properties or trade properties. That's kind of where I am. Very diverse. Each day is massively different, full with meetings and tasks. But that's kind of me. I'm doing coaching, wrote books, got a podcast, doing masterminds, do a load of content. I do loads of different things. So yeah,
what do you do after, what do you do with your day after morning tea time?
the day, so on an evening, as in when I finish work.
Yeah.
Kids. I've got 4 kids as well, just to make my life a little bit harder. So yes, time with the missus, time with the kids. Don't go out that much anymore. Not like my younger days growing up in Newcastle. It was all about drinking and partying. I don't do that anymore. So yeah, love going to the gym, love keeping fit, walking, getting myself outside, exercising, spend time with the kids, time with the missus and work. That's pretty much my life.
Amazing. So age 4, what were you up to?
Age 4, bloody hell. We're up until about, I think I was 10 or 12, we had literally nothing. So I grew up in a place called Throckley, which is quite a rough part of Newcastle, in a block of flats. So it was 5 or 6 stories high. We were on the second top floor. I remember walking through, don't know how old I was exactly, but 4-ish, 4 to probably 6, somewhere in that range. You're literally talking, there's people on drugs in the stairwells. My mum used to cuddle us and like cover us when we're walking out of the flat. It was really, really harsh, to be fair. But I had nothing going up, nothing at all. But that made us, it's not a negative. That made us who I am, I believe. So never been asked that. What was I doing when I was 4? It was something like that. Yeah, I was in a shitty area, probably not doing very much. Is the short answer.
And you toddled off to school once you'd sidestepped around the dealers in the stairwell?
Yeah. So at field school, it was shocking at school. I was like, I think it's a little bit different now. I've got 4 kids, and it's actually quite cool to be clever now, which I think is a good thing. Certainly where I grew up, it was cool to be the naughty lad, to be the chav, to be the lad that was taking drugs, the lad that was really naughty, the lad who was getting into fights. So I was the naughtiest kid in my year, and I was the biggest chav in my year. So school was, a bit of a whirlwind for me. Yeah.
And did any teachers or adults have a positive influence through your school days?
No, not at all. All the teachers hated us. I didn't like the teachers either. I was very, very hard work. I remember specifically challenging everything, and I've still got this in us now. I challenged the teachers constantly. I remember being in science and they were like, put this chemical into this chemical and it'll go purple. I was like, well, what's the point? And they were like, well, because this does it. I was like, I'm not bothered. This doesn't, why do I have to do this nonsense? It's not like, and I had this back then, like when I was, I don't know, 12 or 14 or whatever. Like, this isn't going to benefit me in my life. I've never used a Bunsen burner since science. I don't know about you. It was nonsense and I was right. I never used them since. It was complete nonsense. But I remember challenging everybody. All of the teachers literally did put us down. send us out the class. You're not going to amount to anything. All of that type of stuff. I was that kid that was just a nightmare.
I was never that kid. I'd always be that kid's mate.
Yeah, tag a little. And I didn't really have, to answer the other part of your question, I didn't really have any other role models growing up either. I didn't see much of my dad at all, but most of my childhood. He came into my life sort of a little bit later on, but like I didn't, he's certainly not like a role model either. I didn't really have anybody to model myself on or anything until I got into sort of business, I think.
And so what happened at end of your secondary school career? What was the transition, and what did you get into?
So I was told by my mum, like, you get in a trade because that's all you're good for. It was either like the army, but I was probably too naughty to go in the army, too much of a rebel to go in the army, or like you need to go and get a trade. So I went from age 16 to age 19. I was a joiner, I was a carpenter, and I hated it. Again, I had this authority thing because I was the apprentice. It was like, Terry, you go make the cups of tea. And I was like, no, you go make the cups of tea. You have to make the cups of tea. You're the apprentice. Well, no, I don't. I'm an apprentice joiner, not an apprentice tea maker. And I just had to. And then as an apprentice, you have to like work with a gang of other tradesmen. So I was with this group of builders, and they hated working with us because I was so argumentative and disruptive. So I moved to a different one, and then the different one, I used to work myself with them, and then I just got moved constantly. And then as soon as I finished my apprenticeship, they either keep you on or they get rid of you. So I was like, get rid of him straight away. He's too argumentative. I did some join me work after that. Then I got into sales, and that was kind of the turning point at 19. So yeah.
And so coming off site and getting into sales, and was it inside sales or outside sales? What were you?
So it was all face to face, and it was all at the start. I mean, because I was young and naive, I didn't know any different. It was like literally we had a morning meeting, we did a week's training course, and we could sell life insurance, believe it or not, back in the day. Hardly regulated like it is now. Like we did a week's training course, and then you could literally sell life insurance the next week. And it was literally like, Terry, you're going down this high street today. This is your script. Say this and walk into those businesses, knock on those doors. Because I was so naive, it was like, I was like, okay then. Imagine doing that to people these days. Imagine doing that to 19-year-olds now. They would shit themselves. So I don't know if I can swear on this podcast. They would absolutely, wouldn't it? They would absolutely, most people would shit themselves when you got a call. But because I was young, I just didn't know any different. And I think the only reason that I'd done what I was told, because I was used to doing the opposite to what I was told, was because then they said, if you sell, you make this much money. And I was like, okay then. And
I'll give that a go.
Yeah, definitely. But that gave us the tough skin that I've got now. Like, I'm not bothered about speaking to anybody. I've spoken to billionaires before. I've spoken to some really high net individuals, and it doesn't faze me in the slightest, one bit. I would speak to anybody, but it's partly down to the I think, me tough skin that I developed at 19 doing that.
Yeah, I don't think it's too tough compared to talking back to builders when you're the 19-year-old apprentice or 16-year-old apprentice.
Yeah, I don't know why I had such a chip on my shoulder, and I don't know why I was so argumentative, but that's just I just was. That's just who I am, who I used to be.
And presumably, like the sales training and actually getting out a bit of experience and talking to people, did your mindset shift in terms of how you viewed other people?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was more like when I was a joiner and people were telling us what to do, I didn't really respect them. And I'm not saying that that's right. I didn't respect the teachers. So that's probably why I was a bit like that. But then when I got into sales, there was people making loads and loads of money. And in my head, I respected them because they were making loads of money. And that's what I wanted. So I think that's why I listened to them and kind of, so it did, yeah, to answer your question, it did change what I thought of some people. and I put money on a massive pedestal. I must be honest, at the start, the whole reason I was in that career in sales was to make money. That was my sole focus for a few years, and I did make a lot of money. I was making 80, 90 grand when I was 19, and that's 15 years ago. That was a lot of money back then. That's a lot of money now to a lot of people. But yeah, it definitely changed what I thought of people for sure. Because it was like I realized there's a whole new world now. There's these people that can use the brain and the voice to make money instead of the hands. And I was like, wow. Like, and these people are driving around in amazing cars, living in big houses, amazing holidays. The joiners weren't doing that. The joiners were moaning about life and complaining about everything, making 500 quid a week. These guys were making £1,000 a day. And I was like, wow, this is mad. So yeah.
And so there's a few routes sort of emerge in the next phase. You get into business yourself and you get into property. Maybe talk us through one of those and how the two interact.
Yeah, so I was making good money at age 19. 19 till about 21, I worked for this American company. 21 to 24, I worked for a different American company. Again, selling life insurance. And then when I was 24, I thought, like, I can do this myself. I had a team of about 40 people, to give you an idea. A 22-year-old, 23-year-old, whatever I was, I had 40 odd people working for us. That was quite a challenge. So I thought, you know what, I can do this myself. I can run a business like this. I'm already pretty much running a business. I've got a big team. I can do it myself. So I started to make decent money when I was 24. Although I was still making, 6 figures prior to that. So I started to do some property when I was like 21, 22, as in I done it completely wrong. I was buying low value, buy-to-let, cash in horrific areas with DSS tenants. Like, that was my model. I did no financial education, no mentor, no nothing. I just literally done what I thought was a good thing to do. I had money and I thought, I'm going to put it into an asset. So then it just developed with time. I was only buying 1 or 2 properties a year for the first few years. And then 2016, 2017 is when I ramped the property up. So 6-ish years ago, I ramped that up, and that went from buy-to-lets to HMOs, to Airbnbs, to hotels, to bars and restaurants, glamping sites, and all of the other stuff that I do now. And that spiraled into business. And I've always just diversified. You probably get asked the same question. A lot of people say to me, what is the best property strategy? In my opinion, and my answer to that is, the best strategy is to do multiple strategies. The best strategy is not to do one thing, because you could get caught out. And I've always that's the way I look at it. I just spread my risk and I do different things. We've got a big team behind us to make sure things are delegated, things run without me, systemized. And yeah, it's kind of a whirlwind, really. But yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the first business. Tell us about what the original concept was and how it panned out initially. But like, what happened basically?
Yeah. So it was called Bespoke Financial. So it was a life insurance brokerage and a mortgage brokers. That's what the business was. Because that's what I was doing prior. I was already doing life insurance, I was selling life insurance for the other 2 companies. So it was a very easy transition. It was the same principle. So we had Aviva, Zurich, Legal and General, all of your mainstream insurance companies, we could sell their products. Started off, I had a team of people at the previous place. Some of those guys came with us, and we got that to, before I sold my shares in that in 2022. It was a 7-figure deal. I had about 120 sales staff at that point. So it was a big operation. But effectively, it was just selling life insurance to families and to people who've got a mortgage. And then we started to do the mortgages, and we had a couple of the other things that branched off from that. But
and you've got all the renewals and product transfers, and there's like more and more things layering on the same relationship, basically.
Yeah, definitely. It started with life insurance, then we got home insurance, then we've done mortgages, then went to buy-to-let mortgages, and then we started to do wills and trusts and estate planning, then referring pensions, then all of the financial services is quite broad. So we didn't want to do everything in-house, but we wanted to do a lot of it in-house and then spread what we couldn't, or pass on what we couldn't do. And that was a fantastic business. That's how I made most of my money. And I loved it. To be honest, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I do miss it a little bit, but I know I'm on to bigger and better things now. And I had to exit in order. I had to shut one door in order to open another door.
And at
So yeah,
what point did you start considering a possible sale of your shares?
about 2 years prior. I mean, I always thought that selling a business is like utopia. It's like you sell a business, you're done, you're set, you can retire. When it's in reality, it's nothing like that. But I used to think
Mhm.
that's what it was about. That's what I wanted. And it obviously impacted my decision because I was making so much in property. And because the property businesses was going strength to strength and I was doing these bigger deals and getting into loads of other stuff. And I was making a lot of money over here. It was like, well, I'm doing two kind of things here that'll take a lot of my time. So I was like, well,
Mhm.
I can still run them the way that they're being run, but if I sold one, I could just then invest a lot of that money into property. That
Mhm.
would make sense for me. And then we were approached, and then there was various negotiations. Went on for about 18 months, and then yeah, got a number I was happy with, and we done the deal, and that was that.
Very good. And parallel to this, you've got the property stuff building up. So
Yeah.
you go from buying run down buy-to-lets in not great areas, and you're paying cash. What what sort of started you thinking about? Well, there might be another way of doing this.
So a couple of funny stories. I mean, it wasn't funny at the time. But the first property that I bought was 14,000. It was either 14,000 or 14,500. I can't quite remember. I think it was 14 grand. Anyway, you can imagine what you get for 14 grand. So I got this property, done it up, got a tenant in there, and they were paying £385, or the government were paying DSS when it used to get paid direct to you,
Mhm.
385 per month. I was like, fantastic. Got the second one, couple of streets away, same again, 385. I was like, fantastic. Went to an auction to look at another one in that area, and I got outbid. And there was another one in the catalogue that I hadn't viewed that was 16 and a half grand. So never viewed it, ended up buying it blind at auction. And then I got it. So got the keys 28 days later, whatever. And I remember it was a U shape, this street. And I drove down this side of the U. Every single house was boarded up. And I got to the bottom of the U, the bend, and there's gypsies, caravans, horses, burnt out cars, is no joke, burnt out cars and everything. Turned the corner. And then on the other side of the U, still all boarded up, by the way, these houses, was my house, which had metal shutters on it. And the door wasn't boarded up. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And I just got a sinking feeling in my stomach. Walked in, opened the door. The smell was just horrific. There was animal shit. I don't know what it was. All like caked all over the floor. Like bad. You talking like nearly past the skirting boards. I don't know what had went on in that house. Walk through, and this is honestly God's honest truth. I've talked about this on another podcast. In the back garden, there was a horse tied up to the fence, and this horse looked pretty ill. Like it was all sucked in and all that. Like, and I was like, what the hell have I done? Yeah, like this is builders. I had 3 sets of builders refuse to work in there. It was that bad, just to clear it out. So, anyways, I bought that one. Ended up getting it done up and got a tenant in. So that was 385. And I was like, this is great. This bought a flat in a different area, which is also really rough. Couple of months after that. Anyway, so that was 4. So I was on like 12, 1,400 quid a month, whatever it was. I was thinking, this is great. I've like uncovered something here that I never read any books on anything, never done any, YouTube or podcast. They weren't even around back then. I was like, this is fantastic. And then I was on the treadmill, the cross trainer at the gym. And I remember getting a phone call. Is that Terry Blackburn? Yeah. It was a police. Do you own such and such a street? I was like, yeah. What do you know about this tenant in such and such street? I was like, well, nothing really. It's rented out, blah, blah, blah. Turned out that he was a big time drug dealer, I was told. And someone was stabbed in the property. And it was an attempted murder scene. So then I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done here? Literally within the space of a couple of weeks of that phone call, I had a boiler pinched in one of them and broken into. I had one of them trashed. And I was like, I went from like thinking this was great at 1,400 quid a month to like 300 quid 1 month. And I was like, no, this is a disaster, this. So then I sold them all. And then I'd still done no education at that point. And then my strategy in my own head was, right, I'll start to buy around about, excuse me, 100 grand with mortgages. And then I started to look into mortgages. Obviously, I was already in sort of financial services then, so I knew a bit about mortgages, but not a huge amount. Certainly not like.
And presumably some of the clients were investors or in some shape or form.
Yeah. When we at that point when that happened, that was when I was first buying. So you're talking. I was 23-ish, 22, something like that. I wasn't really like, I wasn't in with the big clients that I was in with towards the end. Like if we were doing a mortgage, it was a small low end mortgage for a first time buyer. Like towards the end, we were doing large portfolio mortgages and all of that type of stuff in bridging and commercial development finance. But like at the start, I wasn't really dealing with investors. As I started to buy properties, weirdly, I started to meet other landlords and they came to me to sort the mortgages. And that spiked my interest even more because I was speaking to people and they had 10, 12, 15 property. I was like, wow, imagine having that many. Like that would be great. And that kind of sparked my interest even more. But yeah, nobody guided us, nobody told us what to do. I didn't watch anything or read anything. It was very much I was just doing what I thought was the right thing to do. Which is obviously wasn't at the time. But yeah.
And what was your own image of yourself at this point? So, like the business side's flying along, the property side was flying along, then it wasn't, and then you sort of reinvigorate it. What are you believing in yourself at this stage?
I've always and it's really not ego, but it's just I think it's just confidence. I don't know why I've always had this confidence about myself, considering the upbringing as well. I've always just had this confidence that I'm gonna do something massive in my life. I've always thought that. I remember saying that to the joiners actually, and the joiners used to take the piss because I was like, I won't be doing this forever. I'm gonna be a millionaire, and they were like, yeah, we said that, Terry. I was like, no, I won't be doing this forever. I know I won't. Yeah, whatever. Go make the tea. I had this thing that I was gonna do something big, and I didn't know what it was. So I thought at that specific time, I was like, fucking hell, I'm nailing it, yeah. All my mates weren't making anything near that much. I had a business that was going fantastic. I was buying all these properties. Everyone started to look up to us and ask us, how are you doing it and all of this. And I thought I was the man, like as you do. It's only until you meet people who are doing, in my instance anyway, it's only when you meet people that are doing loads more than you, it's then when you start to realize, you know what, like I'm not actually the big fish. I'm a small fish at the moment compared to this person, and that humbles you a little bit. I just thought I was the man, like making 80, 90 grand when you're 19. I was like that, going everywhere, partying, thinking I was the man, and I made a lot of mistakes, but it is what it is.
Very good. And who did you start looking up to at this point?
It was the people in financial services. So when I set Bespoke up when I was 24, I mean I don't know if you can see all these awards on here. I won all these awards.
If you're listening to the audio, there's a shelf full of awards.
So I've won a lot of these awards all over the world. You're talking Berlin, Iceland, Paris, Vienna, Barcelona, all over.
I have to comment that they're all silvers. There's no gold ones. What's that about?
The old glass.
Yeah,
Old
okay,
glass
there we go.
I think it's your eyesight, Will. There's a couple of green ones, but they're all #1 awards, by the way, because we're the biggest in the country. But I get to my point. So when I first set the company up, I won a trip to Athens, and we're winning a big award. But then it's for the sales volume, and I sat beside a guy called Tony Taylor. I'm actually going to do some events this year together. Fantastic guy, unbelievable salesperson, probably one of the best I've ever met. I sat beside him and a guy called Jason Howard, who's worth, knocking on 100 million, really, really wealthy guy, really, really good at what he does. And anyway, I sat beside them, got chatting, and I was like, they were just telling us the stuff that they were doing with property, bridging, commercial, all of this mad stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like these guys, like I've never met people. Honestly, I remember it so vividly. We're on a rooftop terrace, having food, really idyllic, loads of lights everywhere. It was just, I just remember thinking, oh my God, like these guys, I want to be like these. And ever since then, we're really close to them, and we're really close still. And yeah, they kind of inspired me to think bigger. And they were there. I just rang them a lot, and I was like, "How do you do this? How do you do that? What do you do if this happens? Why do you do it this way? What's your goal?" And I just shadowed them, and I kept around them as much as I could. And yeah, that kind of massively inspired me there to do more.
And you obviously have a transition where you've learned how to sell yourself, but then you've got a team of people that you've got to manage as salespeople. You've got to recruit them, you've got to train them, you've got to manage the managers if you're getting to 120 people. What was going on through those elements? Because that's all new, and getting people to respect you, who are your employees, that's a different skill set than selling something.
100%. And just because you're good at sales, it doesn't mean you're good at managing people, because it's a complete different skill. And of course, I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned from all those mistakes and got it wrong numerous times. And I think that's the best way to. Well, it's not the best way. It's for me, it sinks in more if I make a mistake than if someone tells me not to do it a certain way. It just sinks in better if I make the actual mistake myself. Obviously, some mistakes can be very costly and time consuming, but it was a challenge, definitely. A young lad having a business of that size and having loads of financial advisors working for me who were 40 odd years old when I was 20 odd years old. It was a definite challenge. And at the start, it was like, I'll lead from the front. So I will sell more products and make more money than all of them to show them how good I am. So I forced them to respect my sales figures. And then I started to read, I started to listen to podcasts and audio books and read books on management and find out, everybody, it's hard to manage people, and you've got to manage people in different ways. Some people you can be direct with them. Some people they need a handheld. Some people you can just focus them on a goal. Some people you can really, discipline them and tell them off directly. Some people you've got to coach it out with them and be a bit nicer. And you've got to, it's very varied management, and you've got to learn what makes somebody tick, and how they take in information, and how they want, and what they're actually working for you for. Because some salespeople aren't bothered about money. Some people just want recognition. Some people want money. Some people want to achieve something specific. Some people just want a part of a team. Some people just want a paycheck. So all of those different dynamics, you've got to adapt your management style to suit that individual. And I only got to this level of management skill through 10 odd years of managing people. At the start, I wasn't the best. So yeah.
Very good. And at what point did the property become the majority of the focus?
Probably around about 2017, but when I started to ramp it up, when I started to buy 10 plus property a year in sort of 2017, I think it was either 2016 or 2017, and that's when it took more of my focus away from bespoke. And then 2019, like the business was pretty systemized in 2019. because this is actually another talking point. So when I started to focus more on property, I also started to focus on, right, how can I make bespoke run without me? Because up until that point, the business didn't run without me. If I went on holiday for 2 weeks, it was chaos. So the only way you can systemize it is systems and staff. So I started to put the things in place, the office manager, the sales director, the sales trainers, team leaders, all of that type stuff. I built all of that between sort of 2017, 2019. And by 2019, the business was systemized. Then I took property up a notch. I sourced about 50 properties alongside buying 16. Then it was kind of just ramping up at that point, and I was kind of selling was on my radar at that point as well. And then 2022 was gone, and I wouldn't say my focus is solely on property now, because I'm doing that many different things, but it's property related companies what I'm involved in.
Yeah, property sector. So when did you add your second business?
Well, good question. So I was 24. I think it was around about, I think I set up bespoke estate planning about a year later, but then I set up Mortgage Genie when I think was 26 or 27. I haven't even talked about that. Mortgage Genie was a good little business that I also exited. And the reason why I set two different companies up, Mortgage Genie was an online mortgage brokerage. So I set that up, recruited a couple of other directors, ended up a year into that business. I got a £500,000 investment into that business for 20% of the company. So, the value in that at, 2.5 mil after, after a year effectively. And that kind of is another talking point. That's what put my mind onto raising money, because I was only 26 and I got someone to buy part of or invest £500,000 into the business in return for 20% shares, and we reinvested that 500,000 into different things and grew the business. Then I exited about a year later. But yeah, so that was the biggest, or the proper bit. The bespoke estate planning wasn't a proper business. I wouldn't say it. We've done very little. Mortgage was my proper my first, my second business that was of any size. Put it that way.
Right, and then see, if you've got 11 businesses, you've been adding them about one a year, give or take, in parallel with doing 10 plus properties. So what's your current favorite child within the business suite?
Oh, I can't say that, man. I've got staff in each of them. I can't say that. But I love all of them. I mean, when I sold the business, I mean, anybody listening to this, if you've sold a business before for a lot of money, like you'll kind of understand this, that you have to do a lot of soul searching and you have to do a lot of like reflection. And I almost had to reinvent myself when I sold bespoke. And I made a commitment to myself that I'm not going to get involved in things that sort of don't serve us anymore. And I had a couple of things that were ongoing at the same time as a sale that I'm no longer involved in. Like, I'm no longer involved in the glamping site. I sold my shares in that as well because it wasn't serving us for various reasons. But like now, currently, as I'm saying this, in 2024, I'm only involved in things that I want to be involved in and that I enjoy. Got a big team still who help us with everything. And yeah, like I love all the businesses for different reasons. Some of them have got more scope to make more money than others. And some of them, probably I still won't be involved in them if you fast forward 5 years. But like, business, that's another good point. Businesses aren't forever. Some people think that, if you set up a business, that's it. You've got to have it forever. You don't. You can't sell it. Like you don't have to have that business forever. You can't exit. You can't change. You will change as a person as you get older and as you get more wealthy. You just do. So yeah, if you can do BRR, the strategy in property, buy, refurbish, refinance, you can do the same with the business, but you can set it up instead of buying it, scale it up to a size, either get someone to run it for you or sell it. The same principle. It's just a bit harder, quite a bit harder than doing a BRR is running the business. There you go.
And quite unusually for someone who's had businesses with a large number of staff, still has businesses with a number of staff. You've put your hand up to coach other entrepreneurs and people in their businesses. What possessed you to do that?
I was getting asked a lot, was the first one, and I kept saying no. And then, I had the sale of Bespoke going through, and I was like, okay, this lad from Liverpool, I really liked him. I was like, right, Samuel, let's do it. That was the first guy, and then coached him for a year, and he started to get some really good results. He referred us to his friend, brought him on, and then I only kind of done it like I wasn't pushing it anywhere for a good year or so alongside the kind of Bespoke sale thing. And then I must admit at the start, I didn't like it. I was like, felt like a counsellor, and they were telling us all the problems, and they were having a moan and a whinge. I was like, oh my God, I can't be bothered with this. I don't need this. But something probably turned, I think it was the start of last year. I just started to enjoy it. Like, and I do say no to some people, and I honestly, hand on heart, do. Like, it's not my main thing. It's not my income stream. Like a lot of people it is, they say it as like the main income. It's definitely not my main income. I just started to enjoy it. And, I thought I'll get some, people who are good lads or women, nice people. And I thought, I'll only work with who I want to work with. And it's motivational, but I think because when I had Bespoke, I had all them sales staff, I motivated them constantly. Every week I had sales meetings, motivate. I was the one that buzzed everyone up. But that business is gone now. I don't have that. So I kind of missed that feeling. And I've done that for 9 years, between starting it and selling it. And coaching has kind of given us that back because I motivate them as well as educate them. So I think that's why I'm doing it.
And what are a couple of client results? Good ones. You can cherry pick a couple of pearlers.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads to be fair. But one that springs to mind first when you said that is Ant. So he'd never bought a property before. Well, he bought his residential, but he'd never bought an investment property before, never deal sourced before, never done anything like that before. He started working with us this January, sorry. Well, we're talking in like the December 22. Started the coaching properly in January 23. So last January. After 2 sessions, he'd done a back-to-back, made 19 grand. And last year he made
just explain what a back-to-back is in 30 seconds.
So he agreed this price, X price with the vendor, and then he'd got a solicitor to write up an agreement, and he exchanged contracts, and he resold it for a profit. And he effectively get the bit in the middle. So they agree a price with a vendor, and they sell it to somebody else at a higher price, and they make the bit in the middle effectively. It's a simple answer. So yeah, he agreed that. I talked him through it. I told him how to negotiate it and all of that. Ran the numbers through with him. After 2 months, he made 19 grand. He left his job this month, actually. And so pretty much a year later, he was a chartered accountant, and he made about 80 grand off deal sourcing last year and left his job. So that's a pretty cool success story. You know what, with coaching, like a lot of the successes, right, are the ones where I tell them not to do a deal, right? Because they're going to go ahead with this deal. And I'm like, that's a shocking deal. They think it's a good deal for whatever reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you can't do that. Do you know about this? You know about that? Oh, no, I didn't know that. Like, you need to not do it. So the monetary amount that they would have saved is humongous, because a lot of people who are pretty early on, they don't get it. There's been cases where people have agreed to work with an angel, or they've agreed a JV, and I'm like, no, like that's not 50-50. Or like, you don't give them that much of the business if they're doing nothing. And everyone puts money on the pedestal, don't they? Mm-hmm. They put money so high up. Oh yeah, you can have 75% of the profit if you're putting all the money in, but like that's not right. Like, is your mentor, it's like, no, value yourself as well. Mm-hmm. Got to be 50-50, not 75-25. Loads of guys that I help with deal sourcing, and that's just like helping them how to identify deals, how to identify investors. I've helped loads of people raise money via social media and via speaking to the friends and family. and a lot of the salesy stuff comes in here. You've got to know how people's minds work in order to position the right type of offer. Plenty of guys have done flips that I've guided them through. Plenty of guys have started to buy HMOs, Airbnbs. A lot of people don't understand HMOs. A lot of people don't know the regulation around them and what works and what doesn't. So yeah, that there's loads there.
That's a bit of a flavour. Fantastic. So we might get you back on for a focused deal clinic where we'll have a look at a couple of deals in a bit of depth. But Terry Blackburn, absolute pleasure. Before we go, if someone wants to get hold of you, what's the easiest way?
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on absolutely everything. Just Terry Blackburn Property. Probably my Instagram is probably the most used page, social media page that I've got. But I'm on everything: YouTube, TikTok, you name it, we're on it. Yeah, so just reach out. Happy to help if I can.
Okay, fantastic. Terry Blackburn, I'm Will Mallard. This is My Property World podcast. Thanks again.
Thank you.